And we'll just check this up here. And sorry, one last thing I need to do before we get started. Okay, so sorry, and thank you for your patience. And welcome everybody to an introduction to getting things done, specifically built around this idea of that we're now having to work from home a lot. Though whether that be the case for too much longer, we don't know, but it's still made quite a change to our world. And seen this sort of collision between work and home and a whole bunch of other bits and pieces, etc., and being quite fun and challenging. So I welcome you to ask questions at any point in time. Just type them into the chat window. Happy to answer them if there's something that you have some thoughts about, have a question about, just want to share something in terms of your own experience. Would love to have that interaction with you on today's call. My name is Stefan Jenner. I am a master trainer in the various levels of GTD. So level 1 at the ground level, which is the fundamentals, level 2 around projects and priorities, level 3 around focus and direction, and a master trainer. So I actually train other trainers and now a coach as well. My background is that I come from an IT-based background. I have been in the workforce since I was 15. I'm 50 this year. And have always been fascinated about how we work and the way that we orientate ourselves around work. And that really came to the fore in my IT experience, where I worked in service desk and help desk, which is all about ticket management, workflow, dealing with interruptions and all of that sort of stuff. I was lucky enough to come across GTD in the early days and smuggled the book out of America. And it was a bit of a light on the way I was working. Prior to that time, working at a university in my first part of my life, I had an opportunity to do lots and lots of time management courses. Loved them. I'm a big proponent of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and to this day still reread that book. But found that the time management courses and the time management around those days just didn't fit with me. I found myself having to be, it was like a square peg in a round hole. GTD was a bit of a bolt of lightning in this space. And I can see why it is now the gold standard in personal productivity. So learning GTD, I struggled for many, many years just from the book. And then it was about 6 or 7 years ago, I had the opportunity to do my first face-to-face class with a guy in Singapore, and then become a trainer. And since then have spent lots of times in the last few years backwards and forwards to Amsterdam, training under the man himself, David Allen, who wrote the book. So without further ado, and enough about me, let us go into this introduction. Now, today's webinar is, it's a webinar, right? So there will be the 6 free steak knives at the end, but it's not your typical webinar. I actually want you to do some work. So we sent you out a little handbook that I asked you to download. So throughout the course, I'd ask if you could refer to that handbook, use it, or if you don't have it with you right now, just a pen and a piece of paper will help you basically get a chance to practice with some of this stuff, with your own stuff. So I really want you to take the opportunity to learn the system and some of the stuff that I'm teaching today by doing, which I think is quite unique in this space. And by the end of it, I hope you walk away with at least a few items. Lauren, you don't have the handbook. I don't think I'm able to get it to you, or maybe I am, because I just sent you an email, didn't I, Lauren? So if I get a chance, I might email you a copy of it so that you've got it in the future. For now, if you've got a pen and a piece of paper handy, that would be fantastic, and it'll get you going to begin with. And while you're off doing one of the courses or one of the exercises, I'll make sure that I get a copy to you straight away, if that's okay. What am I doing? Here we go. Let's get started. So getting things done, the whole concept is based on 30 years. It's actually 40 years of research, millions of users around the world. David Allen started his career as a consultant to people in the different high performance management sort of area, and sort of working with all of these people. He is how he came across the ideas and concepts in the book. And what he did was not discover or create something. He just uncovered something in terms of the way that a lot of high performance people were working. Lauren, just to let you know, I have emailed that off to you right now. So the main concept or the idea or the philosophy about this, behind this book, is the idea that your mind is for having ideas, not holding them. We've done a lot of research around how your brain works and functions, and what it doesn't do very well is remember stuff. I used to think it was 7 things that you could remember before it sort of started falling out the end. What with cognitive research and a lot of science and a lot of the brain mapping that's happened in the last 5 years or so has actually shown it's 4 things. Once you get past 4 things, your brain is basically toast. Okay. So why does this concept work, and why does it matter right now? And especially right now, our worlds are colliding. I alluded that to as we started our discussion. Our worlds are colliding. Work and home are interacting, are basically mashing up into one. And information overload is ever present. And this is becoming more tangled and entangled around everything that we need to deal with. So the idea is that GTD can bring order to a world of chaos. So our new world of work challenges. What are the things that we're having to deal with? Disruptions. We need to deal with them when they come, because they will. Evidence is this week or this last couple of weeks, etc. We need to deal with them when they come, these disruptions. We don't know what's coming down the line. And when they do come, we need to be in a position where we can actually react to them appropriately, integrate that new information and data into our lives, and then be able to work out what we're going to do next. We need to navigate when work and home become the same thing. And that's what's happening a lot. I'm working from home myself. Luckily, prior to this, I used to work from home at least 1 day a week, but there is still an awful lot. I still work a little bit in the IT business, and at the moment we're dealing with a large number of customers who have had to work from home. And at the moment, some of them are starting to work hybridly, and this all things becomes a bit of a mess. We're avoiding, how do you avoid to take work home when you're working from home? Okay, all of these are parts of what we're having to deal with now. Distractions, I love this one. How do you get things done when other people in your office keep asking you for grilled cheese sandwiches? Okay, I was talking to some people today as we were going through the course, and what was causing them disruptions in their life, and one of them said a 1-year-old, because at the moment working from home, dual caring role, etc., and the 1-year-old is asking maybe not for a grilled cheese sandwich, but the disruptions are happening, and these distractions are happening. Interruptions, how to manage your attention when others are fighting for it. What's for dinner? Oh, you're home, can you do this? This isn't just in this world of work right now, but even in the past where we had interruptions. I love a great saying by David: there is no such thing as interruptions, there's only mismanaged inputs. Email inbox overload, less face-to-face often means that a spike in email. How do you separate the wheat from the chaff of all of these discussions and emails and all that sort of stuff? And then on top of email, we've got all these new tools that we have to do. The new tools don't always make it easier to get things done. Starting a new job or moving to a remote location involves meeting new tools. I'm doing a lot of education and training at the moment around Microsoft Teams and Slack. All of these are new tools, new inputs, new things that we need to deal with. So hopefully I'm not depressing you too much, but I'm really sort of aligning around some of the interesting opportunities, problems, and challenges that we're starting to face. When you can't just shout across the office, why organizing your thoughts is critical for getting answers you need. In the past, you've been able to just stand up at the water cooler, have a coffee, have a quick chat with someone, go away, and then go back and have a chat with them again if you've forgotten something. That's not the case now. You've got set times and everybody is dealing with interruptions, etc. You want to make sure that you maximize the opportunity when you are face to face with people or video conferencing or discussing something with them, that you know all of the things that you could chat or discuss, etc. Work anywhere. People who need to pick up and move need to have a system of delivering that works anyway. Now, we really need to be able to pick up our lives and move to another place quickly and be productive again. This has been seen, what's happening around the world right now, but even prior to that, there was so much of this hot desking and all this sort of stuff. And there's a lot of people saying, well, it doesn't work. Well, yeah, it won't work if you don't have a system that will support it. So what do I do with my time? Ways to stay productive when you're unexpected time on your hands. So at the moment, we suddenly found, though, this was when we were first looking at this, we're going, oh, work from home, I'm going to have more time on my hands. What we're finding is we don't have more time on our hands. But when we do get those small pockets of time, when we do get that opportunity, wouldn't it be good to actually be productive, even when your mind is toast, so you can't actually think of stuff? That stuff will show up for you, and you can use those opportunities to maximize moving some things forward, even when you're in a state of frazzle. And how do you find the time when working from home means juggling the demands of kids as well as the bosses, etc.? Strategies for keeping clear minds in uncertain times. These are all things about the new work challenges that we're having to face. And under pressure, knowing when to focus and when to unwind is being okay with either. Okay, part of being productive, part of being able to survive in this world right now is to know when to focus and when to relax, and use that relaxation time to refresh and re-energize. Because what we're dealing with right now, and what we've always been dealing with, it's just that this is putting a magnifying glass on it, is absolute chaos with the amount of work we have to deal with and the amount of things we have to do. So wouldn't it be fantastic for us to be able to start to look like, have this thing of this concept between mind like water? So we know what the problem is. We know what the challenges are. What we actually want to achieve is this idea of mind like water. Mind like water is the ability for our mind to react completely appropriately. Just like a beautiful still pond, if you throw a big rock into it, it will get disruptions. It will get the interruption. It will react to it. It will get choppy. But then, completely appropriate to that input, it will then calm back out, calm back down, get back to a state of tranquility, create a place of space. Because one of the issues is, excuse me, I've just got a sore throat at the moment. Not corona, it's okay. Just been talking an awful lot today. So one of the things that we're trying to do is around this idea of mind like water, etc., is the theory that, we've already talked about your mind is for having ideas, not holding them. One of the questions I want to ask you is, how much space do you need? Well, how much time, do you need to actually have a good idea? Lauren, Wendy, do you have any thoughts? How much time do you need to have a great idea? More than 5 minutes. I'm going to tell you something, Wendy. I think the amount of time it takes to have a great idea is no time at all. You can have an idea or a thought instantly. You don't need time. What you do need is some space and capacity in your mind. Your brain can have ideas. It's having ideas. It's having 50,000 thoughts a day. Okay. But what you need to actually be able to be creative is space, not to be dealing with all of those interruptions, not to be dealing with all of those interactions, etc. So the core idea, what we're trying to do with this mind like water about your mind's for having ideas, not holding them, etc., is to just be able to create some space. Create clear space in your mind so that you can actually have these thoughts. This space would give you the freedom to be creative, engage in strategic thinking. And the one that I love the most is that when you're really on your game, when you are really using the GTD system, when you've got everything out of your head, when you're actually processing it properly, etc., you can simply be present. So how do we do this? How do we get there? Okay, is that we start look at the logic around what we're trying to do with GTD. And don't worry, we're actually going to step in and learn some of these processes. So perfect, mind like water, perfectly appropriate response to and engagement with whatever is present. Your ability to generate this power, be present, create space, is proportionally associated to your ability to concentrate. Your ability to concentrate is directly proportional to your ability to eliminate distractions, and mismanaged commitments create distractions. Your mind is limited in its ability to manage commitments because it's handicapped in its ability to remember and remind. And when we talk about commitments, they're all the things that you've committed yourself or other people, you've made commitments to other people that you're going to do. So until it trusts that there is a better system, it can't let go of the job of trying to remember and do stuff. That's the logic. That stuff there that we've inserted here is sort of, this is some level 3 sort of stuff around the idea that you've got to get it out of your mind into a really good system. So in order to get things off your mind, you must know that you've captured, clarified, and organized your commitments at all of the different levels of your world and life, and that you will actually engage consciously with them as often as you need to. And how do you do that? What is the steps? Is it difficult? No. But think about when you have your act together, there are no interruptions, only new opportunities to enrich your world. So let me show you how to do this, okay? It's very simple, is something we call the 5 steps. And what I'm going to show you here and teach you here is not something that you probably don't already know how to do. I'm just going to give it to you in a new order, a little bit of discipline around how it works. So teaching a GTD, I can do it in 2 minutes. It's very, very simple. Capture, collect what has your attention, clarify it, process what it means, make some decisions about that stuff that you've captured up front, organize those decisions to where they need to be, review frequently these lists that you've created about these decisions that you've clarified from the items you've captured, and engage, simply do. From these lists, be able to make conscious decisions about where to direct your attention and to take your time. So capture. Let's talk about the first step. Let's actually do some of this stuff, okay? And let's have a little bit of a taste of it, and you'll walk away with some skills that will help you right now. Collect what has your attention. So what does have your attention? The capture step is actually quite large. It includes being understanding where of all the things that are coming into your world, putting a fence around them and making conscious decisions to decide where are the things that you are capturing. From the physical world in terms of your inbox, paper, all that sort of stuff, to your kitchen drawer, to the shed out the back, all places where commitments are being captured about things you should be doing, to your electronic ones and email and all of that sort of stuff. But the one I've been harping on about a little bit at the beginning of this course, of course, is your mind. So our mind is definitely an area where you're capturing your attention. So let's have a bit of a play with that, okay? So one of the ways that we can have a play with that, one of the ways we can empty our mind is an activity we call in GTD the mind sweep. So the mind sweep is basically a way, a little tool or a little process that we can use that will help you to capture whatever's got your attention and get it down so that you can actually start to deal with it. So what I want you to do is grab your piece of paper. If you've got your printed out your handout, I think it's on page 7 of your handout. There's a little section there, capture and clarify is what has your attention. So there's some space there that you can use. or you can just use a piece of paper and grab a pen. And I'm going to get you to do a mind sweep. And in the mind sweep, we're just going to do 2 minutes. That's all we need to just get a little bit of a taste for it. I want you to write down everything that pops into your head. And here are some rules around it. No matter whether it's already on a list somewhere, if you've got it on your to-do list or anywhere else captured, etc., if it comes into your mind, I want you to write it down. I don't want you to overanalyze, and I don't want you to organize these thoughts. I just want you to write them down. I want you to abbreviate as much as you possibly can, to keep it short so that when you come back to it, you'll understand what you meant. And I want you to go for quantity, not quality. Okay. Just keep writing. And if you find you can't write anymore, just put the pen to paper and write some more. What I'll do is in the first minute, I'll shut up. And then in the second minute, I'm going to say a few things that'll help capture or trigger some things in your mind. Okay. So if we're ready to go, and hopefully we are, I'm going to say, get writing now. Okay, keep writing. Is there anything you need to do at home in terms of maintenance? Anything that needs to be fixed around the house? Anything you need to do around medical or pets, shopping? Anything you need to pick up from the shops? Anything you need to do around education, if you have kids or your own, etc. Personal development, professional development. Anything you need to do with regards to your wardrobe, your clothes, mending, dry cleaning, anything, any special occasions that might be coming up. In work, is there emails you need to send, people you need to talk to, reports, events? Okay, there we go, done. Excellent. So put your pens down, finish up where you are, and let me know, how did that feel? How did that feel for you? Did you feel a sense of relief and grief? Yeah, hard to think of everything. Fine. So there's a little bit of, yeah. A lot of people find that they get this sense of relief. So many items and variations between work and home. And they're all things that you've committed to and got things around. And what we find is this sense of relief and grief that comes from a mind sweep comes from two places. The grief is, these are all commitments, open commitments that you might not, you still have open, you haven't really possibly finished thinking of. They're not in a trusted space, so that's why they're popping up right now. So you have a little bit of grief around these commitments that you've made, and maybe you're not keeping them as well as you would want to. And then on the other side is you have this relief. So if you're still here, relief and a little overwhelming. Yeah. So if you're still here and you're still on the call and you're still with us, which is fantastic, thank you very much, then what you've done is you've turned around and said, right, well, this is all of the stuff that I have. But right now, the most important thing and most appropriate thing I could be doing is listening to Stefan's lovely voice on this webinar. So you've renegotiated your commitment to them and just said, yes, it's important, but not now. There's a fantastic saying by David, you can only feel good about what you're not doing when you know what you're not doing. So you can get this sense, and I know myself, I wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes my mind's racing, and doing a mind sweep is this way of actually clearing it out. And it's something you can do on a regular basis. But of course, what you've created here is not a to-do list. It's just a whole bunch of commitments, or as we call them, open loops, that you need to finish the thinking on. So let's just quickly talk about best practices and worst practices in capture. Worst practice, of course, is keeping it in your head. Best practice is getting it out of your head. One of the ways of getting it out of your head is the mind sweep. So what do we do with all of this stuff? Now, whether it be the mind sweep items here or whether it be a capture bucket in terms of like your email inbox, etc., the idea now is you've captured some stuff, but you need to get stuff to empty. Okay, so you've got to get these lists, clear them out, and actually do something with them. So we have a step called clarify. And the clarify step is we process what it means. Now, when we say empty a bucket, it doesn't mean you have to do all the work. It just means you need to finish the thinking. You need to clarify it and determine what you need to do to actually move this thing forward. So we need to understand what are these things, what is its meaning? And the way we do it is a fantastic little tool called the Clarify Map. So let me take you through some very simple questions that will help you quickly identify how to determine what to do with these items that you've actually thought up, or these items that appear in your inbox or your end tray or wherever. So the first thing we do is when we're clarifying, we batch process. We do all in one place all together because we're not doing the work, we're just defining what work needs to be done. And so the first thing we do is when we pick up a particular item, so I'm going to pick up an item here from my in tray, first item on top of my in tray, and it's a receipt. Okay, and this is a receipt from Bunnings. So what is it? And it is a very simple question. It's a receipt. Okay. So the next question is it actionable? Is there an action associated with this? I can tell you pretty much with all your mind sweep items, the answer will be yes. But there's really just two answers, yes and no. Is it actionable? Now, if there's no action associated with this, so this is a receipt, there might not be any action associated with it, so the answer might be no. The next question is, well, what am I going to do with it? If there's no action associated with it, do I really need it? If not, trash it. So I could just throw this in the bin. I might not need it. On the other hand, maybe I do need it, but maybe it's what we call reference material, which is it's something I might refer to later, but there's no specific action with association to this, in which case I'll put in my reference system, whether that be an electronic one or a filing system or whatever, I'll just file it away. The third thing is that there's no action associated with in the foreseeable future, but sometime later on down the track, I'm talking quite far down the track, there may be something associated with it. Classic examples here is we have next time in. So nobody can travel at the moment, but I do love to travel and I love food. So I'm on a whole bunch of, keep an eye on a lot of websites and blogs and all that sort of stuff. And I found out about fantastic experiences of food, eating experiences. So just recently I've been watching The Gourmet Farmer, seeing that he has his Fat Big Farm down in Tassie. And I'm like, my wife and I go, we really want to go there. But there's no point putting it into my list at the moment because there's no action I can associate with it right now. So I basically incubate it. I just park it off and say, I want this to show up in my system next time I'm planning a trip to Tasmania. So incubate it. Reference and incubate. So reference is basically, it could be warranties, it could be manuals, it could be things that you may need to refer to. It could be anything that you need to refer to later, but there's no action associated with it. Incubate it is things that at this foreseeable future, there's no action associated with it. Classic example, and we're going to in our organizer, is Sunday Maybe lists. I go and do a David Health concert, watch him play the piano. I think, oh, wouldn't it be great to learn the piano? So what is it? I write myself a note, learn the piano. What is it? It's a note about learning the piano. Is it actionable? Well, yeah, it is, but I'm really not going to look at doing this for a while. It's sort of later on. So I'll just incubate it. I want it to show up in my system every now and then for me to make the decision about whether I'm going to actually do it. Okay. The other things that we can incubate is things like I said, next time in, okay? Next time in New York, next time in London, next time in Bali. And there's a list of all things that I thought might be interesting for me to look at next time I'm in those places, okay? So on the other side is it actionable is yes. Then we ask ourselves, what's the next action? What's the next visible physical action that we need to do to step this thing forward? So with my receipt, is it actionable? Yes, it is actionable because it's a trade receipt, and basically I'm going to claim an expense claim on that. Okay, so there is an action. My next action is basically record the details into my expense claim. So can I do that in the next 2 minutes? Possibly, if I'm using a cool tool, etc. But I happen to know, no, I don't. I can't do it in the next 2 minutes. I'm sitting here with you guys at the moment. So no, I can't do it in the next 2 minutes. If you can do it in less than 2 minutes, you just do it. Classic saying, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide or two. If you can't do it in the next 2 minutes, you ask yourself, am I the most appropriate person to do it? Maybe I have a virtual assistant and they're the most appropriate person, in which case I'm going to get it off to them, okay, and delegate it. Otherwise, no, I don't have the joy of having a virtual assistant or an assistant, so I need to do it, in which case I'm going to defer it. So remember, right now we're not doing the work, we're just defining the work. We've determined the next action is to enter this into my expense claim. I'm not going to do it right now, so basically I'm just going to put it onto my list. And my list will go next time on my computer, enter Bunnings receipt into expense claim. Done. Now, the one other thing that happens there is if that one action, what's the next action, or even by the fact of trashing it, referencing it, or incubating it, doesn't solve the issue, doesn't take it completely off your mind, then what you've uncovered here is a project. And a project is anything that takes more than one step. And in which case we actually record what the outcome, what does done look like, and we put that onto a projects list. So let's have a bit of a play with this, and I'll give you a couple of examples and then give you a chance to do the same for yourself. So here's an example of a to-do list. Mum, bank, doctor, ad campaign. Some of this stuff doesn't really say what it's about. So let's look at the first item. The first item is mum. So what is that about? Oh, okay, well, it's my mum. I know her birthday's coming up. I need to do something around that. Okay, so is it actionable? Yes, it is. Next action, well, I've got to give mum, what's the next physical action? It's about her birthday party. Actually, I know what, I have to call Anne, my sister, about mum's birthday party. Make sure she hasn't organised anything, have a bit of a brainstorm session with her. So my next action is call Anne regarding mum's party. Does that solve the problem, just doing that phone call? No, because there's probably some more stuff that happens, because ultimately the outcome I want to get is I want to give my mum a birthday party. So I note down to clear this thing out of my mind is next action, call mum and regarding mum's party, and the project is give mum a party. Look at another item here, ad campaign. The thing here is that we need to do an ad campaign. I've got to get more people to come along to my GTD courses, etc. What am I going to do? Next action, I've got to email Jim, because he's the person who sets things up, etc. And we're going to have an email Jim, and we need to have a meeting around the ad campaign. And the end product that I'm trying to do is launch ad campaign. So this is next action thinking. So what I would like you to do is just spend 2 minutes and use this tool to go through, and I'm just going to go back to the Clarify map, and to clarify as many items on your Minesweep as possible. Just asking these questions. Don't overthink it. Don't try and take it too far. Just want to go through, is it actionable? What's the next action? Will that solve it? Is there a project? Okay, so let me take you back to there we go, Clarify map. I'll give you 2 minutes, and let's see how many items you can clarify in that 2 minutes. If you need to, oh, sorry, I will reset that. In your handout, there's some things down there just under that page 7, next action, outcome, project. So on one side, write the next action, and then next to that, write the outcome or project. Let's get going. Give it a go. If you've got questions while you're doing this, type them into the chat. Happy to have a bit of a chat and discussion about them if you run into some problems. Okay, 15 seconds to go. So possibly finish up on the next item. Okay, we'll call that time. So how did that go for you? Were you able to clarify a few items? Yeah, it worked well. Do you feel a little bit more sense of control with your work and world? We find a lot of people do have this sense that they're a little bit more control. And but nothing has actually changed in your work and world. What has changed is the way you have engaged with it, the way you are interacting with it. And this little bit of control that you got, and we just got a little taste of it in this 2 minutes, etc., is something you can do consciously by using this particular process. You can use this process to take more and more control and create that space that we were talking about. Get to that point where we can really start to look at this thing called the productive experience. So let's continue a little bit along around this. I did promise you a little bit of information on the 2-minute rule. So if there's one thing that you could take away from today that could see a great improvement in your productivity is the 2-minute rule. The 2-minute rule is something that has really helped squash some procrastination that I have. I'm an amazing procrastinator. You can ask my wife. I think the two of us together provide the tag team couple in procrastination. We're fantastic at it. And the 2-minute rule really, really helps sort of get rid of some of that stuff. If you can do something in less than 2 minutes, you should just do it. Because ultimately, in terms of the amount of brain power and the amount of effort, etc., it's going to take for you to actually keep track of that in your system will take more than the time that you will make in terms of the productivity improvement you'll get by just doing it. It's the law of diminishing returns, and we've determined that 2 minutes is sort of the boundary. Anything that takes less than 2 minutes, just do it. As my dad has said in the past, as Jedi, just effing do it. So if you take anything away, try the 2-minute rule out. So in terms of clarify, what's the worst practice? The worst practice is decide when it blows up. Most of us do clarify. Most of us understand some of the core concepts around how to clarify, etc. Possibly not to the formal degree around what's the next action, what's the project. But we will decide. But the problem is we decide when it blows up, when it becomes so important that we don't have much time to actually do the thinking, etc. The best practice is decide when it shows up. When something shows up in your world, process it, determine what the next action project is, and then park them into the appropriate places. So When we say park it in the appropriate places, that leads us straight into organize. Now, the organize step is the place where everybody gets hung up on. They all get GTD nuts and nerds love this in terms of what tool's the best tool and stuff. I can tell you, us at David, trained by the Dave Melvin Company, who are GTD trainers, we don't have a preferred, well, we personally have a preferred tool, but we don't say there's any one fantastic tool that's going to solve all your problems. It all comes down to personal preference. It all comes down to where you are in your life and what things you have to interact with and which tools work for you. But basically, the tool just needs to do some things. And when we talk about clarify and organize, we think of them as separate steps, but they usually happen simultaneously. As you clarify, you'll be organizing stuff into your system. So at the very beginning of your GTD career, you will basically, or practice, you will come up and just start with a light organizing system and let it evolve as you clarify things and realize that they need to be clarified into different spots, etc. That's where your organizing system evolves to. But basically, at its very, very core, it is putting it where it belongs so that it can show up. And you can really only start to get a good feel for this organizing system. I'm sort of jumping ahead because of some of the stuff that I've been teaching, especially the last couple of days, when you also understand the engage process. So the core idea behind organize is meaning matches location. So the meaning of the item matches the location of where it's found. And what we find is that you need lists. So GTD is known as a list system. Okay, yes, it is a list. There are lists, etc., that you need to work with and work in, and they are the ones that become your trusted system, so your mind doesn't have to keep remembering them. So we see on the actionable side of the equation, remember on the clarify map, we have actually actionable side of this equation, there are 4 places where things will fall. The first one is a projects area, projects list. This would be a list of all of your current projects, a total inventory of your projects, that you have anything that's going to take multi-step outcomes. Is the idea is you create a stake in the ground so that you can keep track of where that thing happens as you do the next actions. The next one is a calendar. And yes, a calendar is just another list. It just happens to be a list that also includes dates and times. And our best practices here is just put stuff that is specifically date specific or time specific. It's not about blocking out time, though. Blocking time's fine, but grabbing deferred items or just things on your action list and putting them on your calendar doesn't work. That has to be stuff that absolutely has to be on that day, because otherwise you'll just miss them and your calendar will then become a whole bunch of another place where you've got unfinished or unfulfilled commitments. The third list is your next action list. Now that's going to get pretty big. So there are some ways that we can categorize and create context around that. And that's something that we can look at further in the future. But basically you need a list of all the next actions you can take. And then the last one is a waiting for list. So this is a list of all the things that you delegated. If it went through this process, you probably still have an association with it. So you want to make sure it gets done. Your waiting for list is also a fantastic way of really, it's my superpower in terms of keeping other people, getting other people onto this organizing wagon, because they find that I don't forget stuff. Then on the non-actionable side, you need to organize that too. So you need a trash can, okay, for where you're going to put stuff in the trash. You need some sort of referencing system where it's easy for you to file stuff away. And this doesn't need to be over the top. My referencing system is quite basic. I use OneNote as one tool, but the other part of it, the paper-based tool, is just some boxes. I don't have that much stuff, so it's a matter of I have a box for warranties and manuals, and it just goes in that, and I know that I can quickly find something in it. I love David has a thing about how do you want to get, you got all that stuff that's crap that you don't want to make decisions about. Do you know how to organize that and get it off your mind? Get a box, write on the side of the box, crap that I don't want to make a decision about, and put that stuff in the box, close it up, done. You've organized it. It's off your mind. When you're ready to make decisions about that stuff, you can open that box up and go through and make decisions about it. So and before I go into this thing, one of the offers that I want to offer you is a free 30 minutes of my time, where if you've got an organizing system or don't have one and want to do want some help, etc., I'm offering 30 minutes of my time in a sort of a coaching scenario where you can do a little bit of a GTD review. So I've posted that up on the webinar now. You can go straight into my calendar and just book in 30 minutes at the time that it makes it appropriate to you. If you can avoid the early time meetings, that would be really appreciated, because I am based in Perth. I do provide them for the people who absolutely have to have them, but also for the people that I work with overseas. So do take that into account and be nice with me. But here is an offer of 30 minutes of my time where we can Zoom connect and you can show me your system, or we can have a chat about what your current major challenge is with implementing GTD. So let's look at the worst practice is blended stacks. So blended stacks are basically where meaning doesn't match location, where you're basically mixing in your inbox stuff that you've processed and stuff that you haven't processed, stuff that you've decided what you're going to do about it, but you're still sitting in your inbox with all of the stuff that you haven't even looked at yet. You know, just blended stacks of paper that hasn't been sorted, etc. That's the worst practice. Best practice is clear categories. Clear categories of defined actions, projects, next actions, all of those sort of things, so that you are in a position where when you need to, you can look at that area, make a clear decision about what you're going to spend time on. Okay, so that we've gone through 3 of the steps. We've gone through capture, clarify, organize. Now let's look at the 4th step, reflect, review frequently. So the 4th step's all about taking time out to take a slightly higher perspective view of your system, because any system, any trusted system, is only going to be as good as it is current. And so the review step is something that a lot of people just sort of gloss over, but it's actually the linchpin, it's the cornerstone of your GTD system. So taking time out, and we have a recommended process called the weekly review, and having a really good look at your system and making sure it's current, clear, all your inbox are clear, etc. It's current, it's all up to date, and then creative, giving you a chance to be a little bit creative, etc. If you do that once a week, you're really, really setting yourself up to make trusted choices throughout the week. So getting that higher perspective, and of course, it's not just about the weekly review. There are other ones. We do daily reviews, we do weekly reviews, quarterly reviews, etc. But taking the time out and thinking about those times is that around the higher perspectives, etc. So the worst practice is reacting to latest and loudest, and being in a position where you really don't know what's going on, etc., and you're just reacting to stuff as it comes in, and whatever comes in first, or the latest thing that came in, or the loudest thing, dealing with it. The best practice is utilizing these orientating reviews so you can set yourself up so that when new things come in, you already know what else you've got on your plate, and you can make trusted choices about where it goes. That, in a nutshell, is reflect. And then the 5th step, of course, is engage, simply doing. So, you know, people say, well, Stefan, we've gone through all this stuff. When do we actually get to do some work? Well, the engage step is in that. The thing is you can only choose what to do, remember, when you know all of the options that you can do. And part of engage is also understanding that there are limiting criteria about what you can do in terms of where you are. Are you at home? Are you at work? Are you in a position to make phone calls? Are you on the internet? Are you in front of your computer? This is where we talk about creating clear categories and context for your lists so that you can choose what to do in the moment and what's most appropriate. Also then starting to get some space and clarity around your horizons of focus, around the other higher perspectives in your life, etc. The worst practice here is the busy trap, is basically just doing stuff because it looks like the most appropriate thing to be doing, because it's just showing up in your world, or you don't have any capacity to look at any other things, or you don't even know what other things you should be doing. And of course, the best practice is utilizing this capture, clarify, organize, and reviews so that you can make trusted choices about what you're going to do. So the 5 steps we've just covered off is capture, collect what has your attention, clarify it, process it, what it means, organize it, organize those decisions that you've made and clarify to where they belong, review and reflect frequently, and then simply engage and do, and know that you're making trusted choices because you've done the other steps. So let me talk about next actions. So what can you do to further your journey? So hopefully one of the things you can do is, of course, book some time with me and we can have a quick review of your GTD system, and happy for you to utilize my time. Of course, we are now very, very happy that we are able to provide our online instructor level trainings. There are some new ones up there and available. So I'm going to post that offer up at the moment, and we've got some fantastic a discount at the moment. And of course, this is where 6 free steak knives came in. I told you, I promised you. It is. It's usually $4.95. We're doing it for $3.95 for the work at home discount. This includes, we do 3 2-hour instructor-led online courses where you're doing real practical stuff, working with other people, etc. You'll get a digital workbook. We do a 17-week reinforcement program to help you stay on it, etc. And we'll provide you with copies of the Kindle or Audible versions of the book so that you can learn more. So I would strongly recommend joining that. Our next one is kicking off around about the next week, I think, and then we've got one coming up in June as well. Okay, and I see Wendy has booked in the time with my for the GTD review. Great, look forward to talking to you there. Okay, hopefully the feedback's gone, Lauren. Okay, moving on. So this idea of these next actions is the whole idea we're trying for is a path to mastery. The first stage is this fundamentals. The fundamentals is what we're talking about, the 5 steps, creating the stability. Once you've got the stability, you can then start delving into projects and priorities. And the idea there is we create clarity. At the moment, the only one available online is the fundamentals, and the rest we do face-to-face, but we will be offering the others online throughout the year. So we have an entire path to mastery. A clarity, projects and priorities. Once we get that, we move up into focus and direction, where we start to actually understand how we can create focus and direction and how we integrate all the different parts of our life and work together. Of course, you can visit gtdanz.com, which is our website, which will have much more information and some places that you can get book on those courses, etc. Happy for you to reach out and email me as well if you've got any questions. We will do a question and answer. But what I would like to hear is, what are the key learnings that you've heard today? What are your reflections of what's the sum of the takeaways or something that you are going to take away and possibly implement in your system and your ability to get things done? Make sure I get everything out of my head and visualize. Yes, Lauren, excellent, excellent. Getting it out of your head, really important. I think clarifying step and organize. Yeah, the clarifying map is very powerful. And the other thing you should be aware of, Wendy, is the clarifying map is actually also a great problem-solving tool. You know, when you've got a problem, what is it? Is it actionable? Is there something that I can do around this problem? Okay, then what's the next action? It's also something that when someone has a problem and brings it to you, it's great tool to use with your partners, with your work colleagues, with your kids if you have them. My daughter hates me sometimes because I do it, but she does get something out of it. Yeah, okay, I hear that this problem. What's the next action here? What could we do? Okay. So has anybody got any more questions that they want to ask? I will stick around for a little bit longer. I do want to say thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have. It's been a joy and nice. Thank you for the interaction backwards and forwards. I look forward to maybe connecting up with you directly. Wendy asks, I guess, how does this work when dealing with others who aren't so systematic? Very good question, and teams and stuff is something that I've always sort of dealt with, etc. The delegate, the waiting for list is one of the things that I find is really powerful when you're working with others who aren't so systematic. I think also once you create some of that clarity, you can start to have a bit of a higher perspective and determine where your boundaries are. What is the stuff that you're going to accept and not accept? I know where you've got a boss and you're the assistant, sometimes you are their GTD system. And the thing is then just being comfortable and understanding that that's part of your role. And so taking that and making sure your system can adapt to that. Other parts of it is really around, like I said, the delegate, the waiting for list, I tell you, is something that I've used on a regular basis where I'm dealing with people who are all over the place, etc. And also just understanding what are the actions that I can take and what are the actions that I can't take. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea. Yeah. Okay. So one of the things we talk about in the engaged step is what we call is the threefold nature of work. And that is that your work is made up of three parts. One of it is doing defined work. One of it is doing unplanned work. And the other one is doing defining work. And each role has a different percentage. And some of that you can't change. But other things is being aware that if a lot of your role is unplanned work, so a receptionist is a classic example, or I run a help desk, so the help desk operators, they don't know what calls are coming in. So they could have a really quiet day or they could have a flat out day. What the thing is if they can be really good about defining their work and having that defined work ready, so when they have those lull periods, they can make progress on things that are important to them. And when they don't have those quiet periods when everything is at them, that they have a system where they can park the reminders and those interruptions into places and make conscious decisions and deal with unplanned work. So hopefully that helps a little bit as well. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I am going to call it a day now and rest my voice a little bit. And hopefully I will see you in your journey with